Hello there, welcome to the 87th episode of Under the Radar. I have not been with you for a while, and I have to say that I'm experiencing some very ecstatic feelings inside for various reasons. One is definitely being back, but it's just a series of wonderful events that have transpired. I'm now into my own place. I've spent the last 2 years being nomadic, and while that was quite an adventure, I was a little bit over it, and I wanted to figure out where I could kind of put down some roots. So here I am in the lovely state of North Carolina, not too far from Winston-Salem, the Triad area, which has got Greensboro and High Point as well. I've managed to start playing a lot of gigs. I have community. I'm meeting all kinds of people and loving it. I think New York for me was kind of a bummer especially the last since COVID era, since I pretty much started this series. But I feel like I'm thriving and out of survival mode. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. What I wanted to say in slave to servant news before I get into the episode is that, one, I just dropped the red tape on Bandcamp in its full entire 33 tracks of glory. It's been a long time coming, and I know I've been talking about it for a long time and just dropping singles over the years since I've been making it since 2020. So today I also ordered CDs, and on the CD version, there are 27 tracks as opposed to the full 33. That is for copyright reasons, for sample reasons, for clearance issues, etc. Because some of the tracks contain old hip hop songs and even some indie, like there's an RX Bandit sample on there from their album Progress on MCA Drive-Thru. A lot of different stuff going on. You can check that out at slavetoservant.bandcamp, and you can download it for free or just stream it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to mess around with putting it in its entirety on any of the streaming platforms. I'm not particularly pleased with streaming platforms these days. As you can see, I still have all this antiquated media behind me, and I love it. And so I'm trying to figure out other ways that I can promote the red tape while I still have Escape Babylon and Singularity on those platforms. And there are some singles from the red tape, like individual songs from it. Sure, that's cool, but I'm not gonna put the whole thing up at this point. And I'm kind of just re-strategizing what I want to do with marketing, music, and just this whole climate that we're in. I think there's some big changes coming. But that all being said, check out the red tape. I should have pre-orders for CDs in the store at samswansonmusic.com/store soon. Pick up some merch if you would like to support me. I very much appreciate you doing that. And also the artwork for the red tape, and I've mentioned this before, but Mr. Matt Sheck of Slap Ass Creations, who I've mentioned in the Flowers for Dorian episode. He, by the way, I'm wearing a hoodie that was made by Slap Ass right here, which was the uniform of the group that I'll be covering today. But before I get into that, I have a lot of updates in Under the Radar news with artists specifically. So, past artists, let's start with Dr. Manhattan. I think last I had talked about them, they had done a reunion show at the Beat Kitchen, and now it's turned into a tour this summer. They're doing a tour with Heavy Lolo and some others. Also, Greta Morgan of the Hush Sound just released her new memoir/book entitled The Lost Voice. You can check that out. I highly recommend it. I saw that Show Off got a new member on bass, a dear old friend named Evan Thorne, who has done reviews for my bands in the past, and we used to play with his old band From Here and After a long time ago. But anyway, congrats to him. He's playing Summerfest with Show Off, and I think they're playing with like Motion City Soundtrack, and I can't remember who else. My homie Jesse Sprinkle, who played drums on most of the entire Slave to Servant catalog. As some of you might know, Jesse was in, not only was he in my band Handsome Young Ladies, the cover band, but he was, his whole history is insane. I mean, he was in a band called Dead Poetic, Demon Hunter, many others, but maybe most notably for the die-hard Tooth and Nail Records fans in the 90s, I think the third band to sign to Tooth and Nail, Poor Old Lou with his brother Aaron Sprinkle, they have now reunited, and they're going on a tour with the Prayer Chain this coming maybe end of the summer, fall, I think I saw. So that's incredibly exciting to see Jesse's playing with Poor Old Lou. Another band that I've covered in the past, Hey Mercedes, one of my absolute favorites. They are playing a reunion. They're playing this big old festival. I think it's called the Friends Forever or Best Friends Forever Fest. It looks like an epic, like Midwestern, as far as Midwestern emo and indie rock and post-punk kind of stylings. You couldn't get a better lineup. I saw that. I think Jawbreaker's playing. They're headlining with, I think Jimmy Eat World's headlining as well. And then I think Minus the Bear just got back together as well to headline that, which is another one of my faves. Mineral, Superchunk, Texas is the Reason, Knapsack, Page of the Lion, Jay Robbins playing a Burning Airlines set. Get out of here. That's my personal favorite. Burning Airlines. That may be sacrilegious to say. But yeah, Burning Airlines is near and dear, even more so than Jawbox for me. Also, Plain White Tees and Knockout, going back to those episodes, Damar Hamilton. This was just something that I thought was cool. I saw Damar was playing in a group called Trophy. Is it? I think it's Trophy times 4. He was playing in this like jazz group, and I had never seen him play jazz style, and it was refreshing. So check out that group on Instagram, I think is where I saw that. Also in the future, I'm going to be covering another band called The Outbreaks, which that actually will tie into today's episode, and maybe this is a really good segue into the episode. The title of today's record was actually stolen from The Outbreaks' previous band called Another Tragic Story, and they had a song on a demo once upon a time when they were passing out CDRs. It was entitled Sleepless in Chicago. And I totally jacked that title from Another Tragic Story because I thought it was so clever. Of course, relating to Sleepless in Seattle. The Outbreaks, Another Tragic Story, real quick, they have a new band called Gnomes that I saw Tim of The Outbreaks posted that. So shout outs to Gnomes. I'm excited to check that project out. However, I have to now update you on the format of this episode that we are about to get into. In the past, I've just covered things one take, just straight through. And I think what I'm going to have to do for this episode, you may see me in different rooms at different times of day, because I'm trying to kind of cram 4 segments into one, and I'm trying to do my due diligence to properly convey it all. So what we're looking at is, I'm going to tell this from my story. Hopefully kind of, there will be some stories involved in talking about this album today. But in addition to the normal format that I document things, I'm also going to be doing an interview with Vapor Eyes, who is the other half of this duo, which I covered his Earth Rising record in the past, which was the birth of this group. He was the boom, I was the juice. So I've got a bunch of interviews with Vapor Eyes. I asked him, I think, about 10 questions. So I will end up going into that at some point, and kind of then after he answers the question, I'll answer the question in my own words. Hopefully less words, because he does such a great job at breaking down the history of our little project here. And then I have to play music, right? So there will be a lot of background music that you'll be hearing. Some of it will be remixes from the album, because this record actually had a lot of remixes by different DJs and producers that we kind of outsourced just for fun to put out little singles and stuff when we put up the record out. So you'll hear a lot of weird music. You'll hear songs off the record. You'll hear us talk about our favorite moments, songs, the recording. I also found a lot of footage, and that's what makes this really complex as well, because I have so much footage from 2008 to 2010 that I'm like, how do I put all this together? So I almost feel like I need to film this in segments and then, kind of add footage, add music, whatever. It's going to be a little documentary, so to speak. It'll definitely go over an hour. It'll probably be as long, if not longer, than the Roses Are Blue episode was last summer. So buckle up. Here we go into today's episode. So as I said, the precursor to today's episode was Vapor Eyes Earthrising. Go check that out if you want further history. I don't feel like I need to go too far into anything. You got to go back and study this if you want more detail on the formation of what became Boomjuice. But just to recap, one thing is that we had done one song on this record called Accessory, and a lot of friends in the scene took quite a liking to that song, and that made us not only like put out other samplers with that song on it. Vapor Eyes started doing a lot of DJ gigs, and we got really serious about creating something. So the time for this was 2008, okay? Vapor Eyes had already released his record very early in 2008, and he was already wanting to make something more creative and add on to what he started. So I think I started going over to Lab 401, which was just this apartment in downtown Des Plaines, Illinois, next to the metro station. I would just take the metro, I'd walk there. I have a lot of memories, by the way, of the experience, but I'll try not to get too much into it because Vapor Eyes is going to do a great job at recollecting some of that coming up. When we started the project in his spare bedroom, and I started recording vocals in his closet, actually. It was just a little vocal booth. We had a closet with all these old hip-hop posters of people. Actually, he had one of this lady right here who, one of my biggest influences.
I'm gonna do it like that at the beginning, like real strong, but it's gonna get like more breathy and goofy as I go, you know what I mean? You son of a bitch. Douche Nozzle Express, ladies and gentlemen.
Grid inside the dome. Take 2,012,000.
Hey, get a picture of my girlfriend. Like that.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
There's my girl. Look at those legs.
Mm-hmm. She's not really like my girlfriend. She's just my baby's mama. That's all.
Estero, folks. Lover of CQ.
Miss Estero. But that was actually something that kind of came about for me. Like, there were so many synchronistic things about this. I'll say that. One, serendipitous moments, things that were just like coincidental, like so coincidental that it was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be here kind of stuff. And then thirdly, the experience of working with Vapor Eyes was so seamless. It was very mindful. We truly collaborated. And I think there was collaboration in previous bands and whatnot, but this was at this next level. And it was just two guys throwing down, and it felt like we filled each other's gaps in. Like, I was a little more right-brained. He was a little more left-brained. He was a little bit older than me. We were brothers. Let's just say it. We're brothers. It was great. And when we started the project, we didn't have a name. It was like Vapor Eyes and Samuel from Dorm Life. Cool. Well, what's your name gonna be? Because if we're gonna do something for real this time, you gotta have an alias, right? So this is 2008. As far as the sound, I would say like Kanye was in between records at the time when we were recording this. He had put out Graduation, and then he was working on 808s. So that was going on. I would say Gnarls Barkley was a big influence. That first Saint Elsewhere record was huge. I think both of us loved that record. And they had just put out The Odd Couple at the time. I remember Dave buying it like the day it came out and being at the studio with him. But then the Postal Service, I would say you could throw that in there. And then other than that, it was a lot of, let's just say like I like to call it post 80s. Like that you know what I'm saying? Like early 90s, like 1990, 91, you know, house music, dance music, Technotronic, Ya Kid K, CNC Music Factory, all that kind of stuff. I feel like you can't get away from it, sonically speaking, because of the choice of keyboards that we used and such. So there was that going on. Also, then you had all the other 90s rap and everything from Outkast to Head Automatica to Kylie Minogue, whatever. So there's a lot there to unpack, but you get the idea of kind of where we were at, and this is 2008. So we didn't have a name, I didn't have a name, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm kind of on the cusp of like, I'm technically a Capricorn, but I have like the Aquarius like split personality thing, kind of a weird creative person. So I was like, yo, Capriquarius.
Ladies and gentlemen, the infamous CQ writing a smash song.
CQ magazine, writing articles.
So Dave starts calling me CQ, but we were like, we need a group name. That's just your alias. So we'd be burning CDs, and he would write like Vapor Swan on the CD because we didn't have a name. So it's Vapor Swan. And one day I remember it was the snacks.
What you got?
Oh, what do I got? Let's see what I got here. What do I got? Oh shit. Camper cooler?
Right? The snacks at Lab 401 were prime. I'd go to the cabinet, I'd get me some jujubes, some matzo crackers, some hummus out the fridge, and then of course, you know what I'm saying, the juice box. It was all about the juice box. See, he either had some high C or some Capri Coolers, Capri Suns.
Oh shit.
And we were in the midst of being surrounded by Dave's boombox collection. So like one day I was just like looking around and I was like, what would happen if a boombox and a juice box got in a fight? I remember this very vividly. And he didn't say anything, and I replied, Boomjuice. And he was like,
some Boomjuice?
That's it. That's the name. So
I'll fuck with that. Some bomb shit.
Drink of the pros.
Boomjuice was born just a total having fun with your homie in his apartment, making some electronic music. I also wanted to say, he gave me a disc initially with 5 instrumentals on it. I remember it very well. One of them was Runway Jam, which went on our Boomjuice sampler. And I think we pushed Runway Jam as our first single because we felt like it kind of fit in with the accessory feel of what we had done before. So Runway Jam was on there. Get On It off this record. And then, of course, none of them had names at the time. There was a song that we later revisited that became Paperboy on Crunk in Public, our cassette, after this, our little EP that we did. However, I wanted to mention Crunk in Public for a second because on Crunk in Public, we included a song that was technically the first Boomjuice song, like when we had the name. So Dave, at the time, 2008, again, just to paint again a little landscape.
Wouldn't say that this is a watershed moment.
That's what's up.
The climate, right? Politically, Obama is getting elected in Chicago. Very exciting time for Chicago, for if, depending upon if you're a Democrat, whatever. But it was just a cool thing. First African-American president, Also, there was a recession happening at that time. So everywhere you look, there's cash for gold. It was a different climate, and CDs were definitely on the decline. As I mentioned in the Alarm Comp episode, everything started. You could see the decline. You could see the closing of borders. You could see the closing of all these different businesses all around you. And it was like, to me, this record that we were making was like a soundtrack. However, that all being said, the band Radiohead had released In Rainbows at the time. And I think that was the first independent release that they did when they weren't on a major. And I don't remember all the criteria. Dave would probably remember better than I, as he's a much bigger Radiohead fan. But they had a contest where you could submit a remix of a Radiohead song. So Dave was like, yo, let's try to do a remix of In Rainbows. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's make it a cover. I'll sing it, and then we'll add you can rap on it. So we included that Reckoner, our version, on here as Boomjuice to promote the record. But yeah, we had dropped that first as like a with accessory on, I think, our MySpace page. That's going back far, right? So those were the first two things we had to represent this new endeavor. And then we got to work. We just hit the ground running and started recording nonstop at his lab.
Let's make it happen, CQ. Take it away. This is my job. Ready? I say click.
I don't really want to freak nobody.
Look at that shit go.
Somebody.
CQ fucking up again.
I don't think I've ever had that much fun recording something ever with anyone. It was so easy to get along with him. We could try anything. It was amazing. And then to add on to this, like, again, for me, I had just moved out of the suburbs. I was living for a minute there in Roscoe Village with my homie 123 Josh, aka Josh Patterson, which I've talked about him many times in a couple episodes, but most notably we did the Alarm Comp art together and kind of compiled that at the Treehouse. See that episode if you want to for further history. I had lived with Josh for a minute there and Dustin, and then I moved in with Phil of Dorm Life and lived in Logan Square. So all during this period, I was recording Sleepless. I think I started the record living in Fox River Grove, and then I moved to Roscoe Village, and then I moved to Logan Square, and then I eventually moved out of the city right before we did the release show for this. So my whole experience recording this was like Sleepless in Chicago. I was literally just immersed in Chicago. And both Vapor Eyes and I think, I don't know what, I'd have to talk to him now, but we were at the time, I would say we were both night owls. Like we would just cram sessions in. I would hop on that metro. Sometimes he'd be speeding to get me to the train or pick me up on time or whatever. It was crazy. Like, I just remember it was so fun.
The infamous Maylee. I'm looking.
She's my muse. What's up, baby?
A source of inspiration. This is how we get down. Boomjuice.
Right here, this is how we get
2008. They zoom on that shit.
Dude, look, it's all out of order.
That shit's going on eBay one day.
This is like the Tarantino way to write an album right here. Write everything out of order like I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tarantino of urban dance music.
Also, we would be using rhyming dictionaries and thesauruses in the studio. We just try to push our minds and try to learn new words and like, does this rhyme? Oh, snap.
But it's all about this.
Like trade secrets.
Secrets of the pros, man.
Take notes. Aspiring artists. Lyricists.
I think it was the word denizen. Like, I remember that one on the song Serious. I remember David like, oh, denizen, that's the one. It was so fun.
The next Young Jeezy. There you go. That's what's up. The main ingredient. Carmel City, bitches. That's how we do it. Boomjuice.
We go to Reckless Records a lot and just have like record store nights or whatever and go check stuff out. And Dave would always find like something for me when he was just perusing stuff and, hey, yo, here's this Ashanti single. Or at the time he was also working at B96. I think he was interning there because he was finishing up at UIC. I believe it was a marketing degree, or was it communication? It was communications, I think. But yeah, so he was working at B96 and he'd get these promo singles. He'd be like, hey, here's Ashanti, here's Mariah, whatever. And just, hey, you got a little gift for you. Like, and to me, it was the perfect gift because as you can see, I've never thrown my CDs away. I still jam CDs on the regular, which, by the way, I'm gonna get myself a CD player in my Honda Pilot at Best Buy, $400. I'm gonna go do that like ASAP. I promise. I'm excited to start listening to music again on CD in my own damn car. But all that to say, David would also introduce me to a bunch of literature that I had never read, unfortunately. It's kind of sad that I never read this book, but 1984 by George Orwell. He's like, oh, dude, you never read that? Like, oh, like, read that, big brother, bro. Like, and so I had that in my psyche going on in my subconscious, and I was consuming that. And then I remember picking up this book with this big yellow blob on it, and I was like, what's this? He's like, oh, that's blood on the smiley face. Like, blood on the smiley face. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? And he flips the page, and I'm like, oh, and so this is the graphic novel of Watchmen. And that was another mind-blowing experience, reading that thing cover to cover, you know. And then the movie came out like maybe a couple months after I finished reading it. So I had that going on. And then my sister got me up on The Giver, which I read. So there's all this dystopian material kind of fueling the background of this release while the recession's happening, while we're kind of collectively bringing in all these old 80s and 90s influences. And I was also a messenger at the time. I had gotten a new job in Chicago at this, it wasn't a court reporting firm, it was like it was sort of like a place that made copies of records, medical records specifically for law firms. So I would go around and drop off stuff. But I remember at the time also, my iPod broke. So all I had were these CDRs to listen to and a Discman. And I would just pop them in and jam them. And every time I'd go back to Lab 401 on a weeknight or a weekend, and we'd make progress, he'd update me with a new CDR right before I'd hit the train and go back to Chicago. So it was quite an experience for me. It was a grind. It was fun. We connected on a lot of movies, a lot of sci-fi. Like, remember I was talking about Dark City and The Matrix and stuff like that. So yeah, all that was definitely in the mix of maybe some of the content, at least subconsciously.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with Vapor Eyes.
Hey guys, it's me, Vapor Eyes. Do you like fat beats and electronical music? I like big booty hoes. They're delicious.
So in the midst of recording all of this, I think I only spent the night one time at Lab 401, I think. And there may have been a second time. But certainly I remember, at least during the Sleep Less sessions, one time I stayed overnight and David had me watch Afro Samurai, that's what it was. And I remember passing out to Afro Samurai on his couch and amidst drinking Fresca and having Starbucks cold brew and Tabasco and cucumber on some za, aka pizza. Yeah, just such vivid imagery comes to mind of that experience. It was a very positive experience.
I can only go so far to improv. I'm not an improv.
Fuck you, Vapor! We're in the studio with half of Boomjuice, producer Vapor Eyes.
Hey guys, it's me, Vapor Eyes. Do you like electronic music? Because that's what we're making here today. Would you like to hear some? I wrote that shit.
So, Vapor Eyes, give us a little insight into your theories.
Well, being an electronical genius, I grew up, started making things for my parents, little presents, homemade stuff out of batteries and soldering irons. You know, I'm half Jewish, so I'm kind of cheap. So, you know, I'd be making stuff instead of buying it. But, started, just making beats, you know, with my, like, fucking doing shit like that, you know. And, then I met this dude named, Capriquarius, who he plays acoustic guitar and writes soul music, but he's white.
Thank you for sharing. Would you like to give a little insight on the recording process going on today?
Well, if you look over here at Lab 401, I've designed special things like my CD rack. Many different types of styles.
Very nice.
Most of all, we listen to cassettes here at 401. But, yeah. Over here we got the keyboards, we got the mixers, we got the turntables. But up in here, this is the closet. See? It gets hot as a fucking bitch in here. Gotta turn out the light and sing sometimes, get all sexy.
We understand you're doing a little rap on the upcoming project.
It's a true
You
story.
care to give us a little freestyle?
Well, it just so happens I can't freestyle. But our record labels will rise like the sunshine. Fuck you, drummer, hit me with that beat just one time. There's a little taste for you people.
Thank you.
That's a B-side.
It's been a pleasure. We have to go. Thank you for sharing and letting us inside your laboratory. Maybe next time we can come back and see a little more when the record's done.
As we were also gearing up to record this record, toward the very beginning, I think, maybe, I want to say it was the tail end of summer. So I would have maybe moved into Logan Square by this point, and we, were kind of moving along with sessions. We had been recording for maybe 4 or 5 months at the time, and so we had put a pretty good dent in, but we weren't there yet. And so we tried to get a photo shoot done right away. We wanted to announce, we got a group, we got a MySpace page, we'll get a website, all that kind of stuff. So friend who I think I mentioned in the past, Annie Rudolph, I'm trying to remember where I would have mentioned Annie. Certainly she was very involved during the Alarm Comp era while I was living with Josh and Dustin. Just this whole time. Also, I think she did the back cover of Mustard is the New Ketchup, the final Dorm Life album. She did that art. Her husband did some tagging in a music video for Runway Jam for us. And I can't remember, I feel like I've mentioned her in the past. She was involved with Beta Promotions for a minute. Just during the Roses Are Blue phase of my career, that was where I met Annie, and she was fantastic soul. I miss you, Annie. Miss Annie, such a great person. But Annie came to UIC to meet Dave and I. I was in a new relationship with a new gal who I ended up marrying, and her and I took a trip to Chicago. I drove. I think I drove, or maybe I took the Metro. I may have walked from the Metro all the way to that photo shoot. But so one thing that we were trying to do for the photo shoot was yo, Dave, bring a boombox, I'll bring a juice box, right? Let's just do it. Well, of course, my spacey ADD brain at the time, certainly pre the development of the prefrontal cortex in my early, to mid 20s, forgot to get one. And so my then girlfriend and I were walking on our way to the UIC area, and we were going through this park, and wouldn't you know, I looked down and there's an empty Hi-C juice box container with the straw hanging out. Perfect prop for our photo shoot. Again, just the little serendipitous, synchronistic moments. Love that part of what Boomjuice was for me. So we did the photo shoot with Annie Rudolph and made some promo material, some graphics, had enough photos to include in our upcoming album, Sleepless in Chicago. So this record, got to talk a little bit more about the recording, etc. So we busted our tails to get this thing done. We wanted to get this thing out, I think, in 2008 was our goal initially. And it just took too long. It was we just don't have enough. It was all the music came so quick, but the lyrics and all the melodies and stuff. I mean, I don't think it came not slow, but it took some time to develop it and really, hone in on it. And I think there were some moments, certainly I remember, where we were frustrated toward the end of it. I think it was like winter, and we wanted to be mixing the record, and we weren't quite there yet.
Okay. Going to get Capriquarius from the train station because his ADD prevented him from following what stop he had to get off at. Thanks, CQ. It's about 19 degrees. And I never leave the house this early. On a fucking Saturday, because we're always in the studio recording. Oh. Let's see. We're off to the blue line. And, oh, it looks pretty outside. Fucking great. Well, I hope one day this motherfucker appreciates this shit. All right.
Sorry, dude. Sorry about that.
Tell it like it is, CQ.
Fucking shit, dude. I was trying to write some shit on the fucking Metro, and I had my notebook out. I was writing in it, listening to my headphones. I bought myself a new fucking Discman, because my Discman shit out on me, and it was $20 at CVS. And let's just say that this thing sucks, and it kept skipping, and I really miss my iPod. My baby is dead, also. But anyhow, long story short, I was listening and trying to write shit for this record that you're gonna hear, and I missed my stop in this plane. So as you see, we're here at Rosemont. I had to take the Jefferson Park stop to from the Metro to the CTA. I couldn't even think of what it's called. From CTA to Rosemont, so Dave could come back and get me. I went this big, like, oval. Because it's not really like a circle, it's like an oval.
The most long-winded motherfucker you've ever heard. ADD and a half.
Yeah.
That's the main reason he missed the stop.
Man.
Yeah. To the documentary.
Yeah. So, sleep less, huh? Got your coffee? Huh?
That's right. I like that cup.
Nice, nice. So, work on anything this week?
I've actually been I've been writing some new ideas for whatever.
Just new ideas for the album or for other things?
For whatever.
Just jamming.
Just jamming.
Nice. I can hardly wait to do that again.
Yeah, it's been fucking fun as hell.
I think that's my favorite part.
It is.
Like, I do like writing lyrics and singing. That's always fun. But when the pressure's on, that's when it sucks. Oh man, dude. Seatbelt warning.
What? Oh yeah.
Got Frosty the Snowman up in here.
Oh man, yeah, get his ass.
Yo, yo, yo.
We did drop this record in May of 2009 on Alarm Clock, my label, as well as David's label. It was the second release in the SSL, Secret Schools Limited label. So a co-release. We produced this ourselves, and when I say ourselves, I mean David really is the producer of this record. I can't take credit. I mean, I definitely was there. I was a composer. He let me do my thing, which was, he brought the boom, I brought the juice, right? Tell me I'm now. Till you tell me I'm now. Till you tell me I'm now.
That's what it is.
That's it.
One thing I noticed when recording this was that David didn't know theory. David did not know how to play keyboards. I had never really messed around with synths. I had played piano as a kid and stuff. So when I heard Accessory, I kind of thought, whoa, David knows what he's doing. He knows how to play synth. Like, he must know something. When I finally started to record with him, I realized, oh, I might know more than David knows. And he's making some pretty dope music. So he just let me go. Till you tell me I'm not. Till you tell me I'm. Till you tell me I'm not, bitch. Till you tell me. Till you tell me. Till you tell me. Till you tell me, bitch. Till you record me.
Let's go.
Till you tell me. Till you tell me I'm not.
That might be hot.
I was like, okay, I'll just try it. And like I said, I think 3 or 4 of the songs were his initial ideas, and then I just brought a whole bunch more material in, and then he had a bunch of beats that we would work off of, and it just went so, like, the musical aspect of it was so fun for me. So yeah, I got to just experiment on keys, find sounds, like, oh yeah, let's try it. So yeah, like I said, we recorded this all ourselves, and I think we were mixing in like February of 2009. And we were mixing this with Mr. Dan Precision, who I've mentioned in the past in numerous episodes, going way back to now. And I'll be covering much more information and episodes on him in the future. But we brought it to the bomb shelter in Park Ridge, mixed it in the spring, and then, booked ourselves a record release show at Reggie's. Got ourselves a little uniform from Mr. Matt Sheck at Slap Ass Creations. And I guess the rest is history. So I guess what I'll do at this point is I want to go ahead and let Vapor Eyes do some talking, since I've done way too much already. And thank you for sitting through this. I'll just finish off comments on each of these individual questions that I asked him, starting with this first question. So, Yo Vapor Eyes, what was your first impression after making the song Accessory on Earth Rising?
What were my impressions after making Accessory off my first solo album, Earth Rising? Well, for one, my first impression was Sam, who I collaborated on that song with on the vocals, was, man, this kid is hungry, he just wanted to make music, man. And we met at an old job. We worked on different floors in the same building. And, oh yeah, let's link up, let's collaborate. Everybody always says that in the music world, but this dude actually came through and he crushed the song, and it was really cool. Probably one of my favorite tunes and one of the more catchy ones off of Earth Rising. And then, he was thirsty, man. He's like, let's collab, let's do some more music. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. And he actually followed through and pursued that, and hence we got Boomjuice.
Well, my first impression of even hearing Accessory was just as I was releasing Roses Are Blue by Dorm Life, and I just remember bumping that instrumental. I think I've talked about this in the past, but I was like, yo, this is some, like, I don't know, like some Kylie Minogue kind of like old 90s house shit. It was just, it spoke to my soul, being a Chicago child, right, of the B96 era, of that whole movement. So after making that song with him, I felt like, man, I was definitely hungry to make something more. Yo Vapor Eyes, I got another question for you. What are your favorite tracks on Sleepless?
When I think about my favorite tracks on Sleepless, I think right out the gate, my first pick would have to be Party Out. Super strong closer. We used an Electribe to create this chord piece, kind of old school, but it's got a super thick sound. It comes across really nice. I think it's actually probably one of the tracks that holds up the most in the modern landscape. It's super cohesive, doesn't sound dated, just makes you want to move, you know what I mean? Other tracks I enjoy a lot are Strings, which is funny because it's based around a sample. And at the time, Swanson was super anti-sample and really pushing not to have them on the record. And I was the exact opposite. I was coming from like a very 90s hip-hop production approach, and I really wanted that to shine through. And so we compromised and had a minimal amount of samples on the actual record. That was one of them, and I really dig that. Also like the message in that tune. Yeah, I think those would be my top 2 at the moment. I'd probably give it like a once a year spin just to revisit the thing, and this could always change, but at the moment, those are the 2 that stand out to me.
Oh, what he just said about samples, it's so true. I actually was always a huge samples person, but I think the Chris Dow era of hip hop, if you will, like once Tupac and Biggie passed on, it just turned into this whole like corporatized, like the whole Puff Daddy and beyond era really bothered me until the Roots like came out. So that being said, you know, like I loved samples then, but then by the time Roots came around, it was like they were doing a live band thing, and like the whole sample thing got beat in the ground. Like I said, just see Puff Daddy and the Family and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But again, like it's a cool thing. Sampling is dope. But at the time I was like, yo, let's compose it. Let's play it. Let's make our own stuff. Let's make something that somebody else could sample of us if they thought it was dope. So yeah, I was a little too far on that side at the time. However, I do love sampling, and I did compromise. That being said, my favorite tracks on Sleepless in Chicago, I would say Ecto-Coolin' is my favorite song personally as an artist. I thought that there was a jungle beat in that one that was kind of a scrap from Earth Rising sessions that we used, and I just hit the keys with these, I don't know, I was really into Estero Fastlane at the time, was a big influence, but that one, I think for me, is my favorite. I see why Party Out is, I think, definitely a banger. Like if you're gonna send somebody a song off this record, I would just send them to Party Out because it's so catchy. Thirdly, I agree, Strings is probably in those top three for me. Strings, there's a message on that one, really like that. I think he used some sort of Hawaiian record, like an instrumental record or something with strings. And funny enough, the ending of that song ends with he let the sample go out, and there's this dialogue on it, and it says, "These are the days of the dance of 6 feet apart."
These are the days of the dancing 6 feet apart.
Mind you, like, remember anybody remember COVID, like 6 feet apart? It was just kind of funny considering we were in this kind of Orwellian dystopian place, and this is back in 2008-9, right, when we were finishing it up. But I found that funny in hindsight. Anyway, yo, Vapor Eyes, what style or genres would you classify Boomjuice as?
When I think about the style of Boomjuice, 3 umbrella genres come to mind. And for me, those would be electronic music, pop music, and hip-hop music. And kind of throw those things in a blender and crush them all up and sprinkle a few other things in there. But those are like the 3 main core things, I think, that created the Boomjuice sound ultimately. You know, you got, on the electronic side, there's some dancey elements to it. It's a very synth-heavy album. We use a lot of vintage synths, and there's like other drum machines and programming and stuff. And so there's a lot of elements of that realm on the record. As far as the pop goes, I think that's Sam's bread and butter personally. You know, the dude's such a catchy songwriter, and he brought that approach through not only, you know, what he contributed musically, but also vocally. Some super memorable lines all throughout the record, and that's just Sam's forte. And you know, I learned so much from just kind of watching and being around him with the more pop-oriented structures and stuff. And then I think the thing, you know, that was really a combination thing we brought to the table. We both grew up on a lot of like 90s golden era hip-hop, and you hear that all throughout. You know, I'm doing some rapping. There's some sample, a little bit of sampling going on in there. Just the way some of the beats are created, and there's those 3 things. You just hear them all throughout the whole record. You know, obviously there's other things going on there, and Sam and I both come from band backgrounds. We were just experimenting with a lot of stuff at the time, man. You know, we got some live bass on there. We got like guitar, saxophone, and bara. We had a bunch of people just coming in and out, throwing guest instrumentation on the record. So it was cool. But I think if we stylistically looking at it, those would be the top 3: pop, electronic, and hip hop for sure.
First of all, thank you, Vapor Eyes, for saying that about me. I wanted to say this also. I'm gonna go back. I think this was after we dropped this record. We were working on Crunk, and there was a band. I'm not gonna name the person attached to the band. There was a band that I had played with it when Dorm Life was about to release Roses Are Blue. We had opened the Academy Is Santi release show in Chicago at the Metro, and the band Treaty of Paris had put out some material with I believe it was Andrew McMahon of Something Corporate and Jack's Mannequins label. I can't remember what it was called at the time, but they had kind of some success on this really dope song called Roller Skates. And I never covered this band, The Series, so I feel like it's a great time to bring them up because I do think they're a good band. And Phil, I kind of go back with Phil and some of the other members. I think he was in Seraphine, and then the singer was in Empyrean, and I think that goes all the way back to Midwest Blue, pre-Remembering to Forget, like 2002. You know, I played with Empyrean once upon a time at the Hard Rock Cafe for 94.7's The Zones contest. Anyway, but that all being said, there was a lawyer that they were using, and I had used that lawyer too, and he was good for me. Like, I didn't get myself into any sort of contractual obligations with him that extended beyond the services that I needed, so to speak. So I didn't sign any deal. I know he was signing a lot of different, artists and trying to get them signed and market them, and I just wasn't. I don't know, something told me, yo, like, we don't have enough heat to, like, for me to pay some lawyer right now, So I didn't do that, but he did trademark Dorm Life for me, pre-Roses Are Blue, which ended up serving me well because that funded, there was a company called Dorm Life, or a film series, and it was they wanted to use the name Dorm Life, and they had to, like, pay us some money because of him. So that worked out, and I used the money from that to fund the Alarm Comp. So it did work out with that dude, and I'm cool with that dude. And so no bad blood at all. But I know it didn't work out for this band, and I won't go into detail on that. But when we were putting this out, I remember bringing in CDs to this dude's office, and he met with Dave and I to like promote us. And one of the first things he said, he's like, your sound is good, but honestly, the big problem that I'm finding, like, I've played it for people that work at labels, and they just say that it doesn't have any hooks. And immediate trigger, Vapor Eyes goes to bat for me, and he goes, what are you talking about? This kid's a hook factory. Straight up. David Cohen, Vapor Eyes going to bat for CQ. I appreciate that. I'll never forget, like, you just, like, were my big bro in that instance. So thank you for all your kind words in that previous response, and in the past as well. To sum up the styles, I think David said it quite well with his description of styles. I would just further that genre or subgenre by stating that I think it was a friend of ours. I don't know if it was Tommy or if it was Giros, or one of our crew came up with a term called Electro-Soul. And it was like, we're like, we just kind of ran with that. We're Electro-Soul. So this record, I feel like you could just call it Electro-Soul. That would work for me. I like that. Okay, Vapor Eyes, got another question for you. What was it like performing live as a duo?
The Boomjuice live experience. Wow, what a trip, man. And I think to really take an honest look at it, you have to take a look at the time period, right? So this is like 08 to 010. And not that we were like totally ahead of the curve, but we were definitely on that cusp, man. If you look back in the rear view now that we're about 15, 17 years separated from that time period, you could see how things were starting to really just inch towards this new wave, man. Like home production, you don't necessarily need a full band on stage type thing. And this is what we were part of, kind of by default. We made this project organically, and then we both came from band backgrounds. And so we wanted to play shows. We wanted to take this thing into the live setting. So we did that, and it was funny because, at the time, there wasn't a ton of places to fit in, you know what I mean? We both kind of came from the punk background and DIY circuit, and kind of found ourselves in the middle of that half the time, I feel like, playing weird different venues or going with punk promoters and playing bills where we were kind of the oddball out. But there was a little scene, I would say, brewing around Chicago at the time, and none of the bands sounded the same, but ultimately the groups that come to mind that we play are Ghost House, A&R, Gemini Club, there were things happening in that realm and in that space that, you know, we're cuspers, you know what I mean? Like, you look at just a mere 5 years later, this thing became the norm. You know, when me and Sam played live, it was me behind a bunch of gear and synths and a laptop, and him on a mic, and that was it. That was the setup, and I think people were still trying to catch up or figure out that this was going to be the wave of the future, you know, and a lot of people at that time, my impression was that nobody really knew what to do with groups like us, you know, so we kind of just got in where we fit in, and I enjoyed it. I had fun playing those shows, man. I'm always a firm believer in kind of mixed genre bills and doing different stuff and mashing things up, you know, going against the grain. But, you know, at the time, really, like the home recording, and it was kind of for nerds, man, or real, you know, people who were really into it. Your 12-year-old little brother didn't have Ableton sitting on his laptop, you know, at the time. It was for really like a niche sort of thing, you know, and I know a lot of people started really messing with that. 04, 05 is when I started picking wind up on kind of the whole Ableton thing. Didn't really cop it for myself till 06, but that was kind of the hub of our live show. And then, you know, I'd have a rack of synthesizers and some other hardware and a drum machine, and we'd figure out how to play it live, you know, and we did that. But yeah, I just think about the times, man, you know, and it's interesting because, like I said, you fast forward about 5 years and this became really normal, you know, but I can't stress enough that at the time it was very weird. Like, there was an element to this where it's like, man, nobody really knows what the heck is going on. Like, wait, you're two guys up there doing a whole thing? You know, it's not a DJ set? You know, so that was like an aura of the period, you know, and that, as we see, obviously swiftly changed, where, you know, a lot of headliners aren't even bands anymore, and you have the whole DJ world that are like superstars, and yeah, you know, so it was cool to kind of be on the cutting edge of that moment.
Is this a bumping jam? That wasn't him stamping it off. That wasn't. I was gonna lose it. You know what?
I do recall, if my memory serves me correct, acting upon a time when energy it did connect. Every day in the galaxy and beyond the average spectrum of sight. Sighting planet differences aside the plane and the boredom of light. It was racing, I was spacing out and chasing it down through old world chasing spaces without a trace. Because the stars don't lie unless the lying face somewhere else. And if the stars don't lie, it's just the cloud covering up what we doubt. When will we wake? When we are safe under the dome? When will we sleep? When we're completely out my door? Attention undivided as I ride it for a couple more seconds before I take my turn to crash and burn. Takes time to earn the cash to. We're burning more than we'll ever know. Wait, when we are safe under the dome. When will we see? When we're completely out our dome. When will we wake? When we are safe under the dome. When will we see? When we're completely out our dome. Yo, Vapor Eyes, trip's almost over, bro. Almost time to get the hell out of this show, yo. How about you hand me a juice box? Break it down like we used to back in like 6th grade. I don't really want to beat nobody. I don't really want to beat somebody. I don't want to make it real funny. Funny enough, they don't make me money. I don't really want to beat nobody. I don't really want to beat somebody. I don't want to make it real funny. Funny enough, they don't make me money. I don't really want to beat nobody. I don't really want to beat somebody. I don't want to real funny, funny enough they don't make me money. I really wanna bring nobody, and don't wanna bring somebody. Come on, tell me if you real funny, funny enough they don't make me money. I really wanna bring nobody, and don't really wanna bring somebody. Come on, tell me if you real funny, funny enough they don't make me money. That's money, that's money, and 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 that's money, 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 and that's money.
Looking back, it's funny, it's interesting because it was a unique period where I feel like music and live performance and home recording and that whole idea of anyone being able to do anything was just starting to hit. So it's kind of neat to be on the cusp of that, for sure.
Well, for me, performing as a duo, I felt naked because I was used to previous bands like Midwest Blue, where I'd be playing an electric guitar with a whole band, singing as the lead singer, or playing an acoustic guitar in Dorm Life as the lead singer. And so I had something to hide behind. And so I was just totally naked without any instrument. It felt really awkward for me. And I don't know how to dance. I don't have the, I remember wanting so badly to bring some sort of crazy energy, like weirdness, like the way Dr. Manhattan, my homies, would bring when they bring it, but I just didn't have that, quite that eccentricity. It's definitely a gifting, or at least something to hone into, to tap into that. So it was weird for me, just being a singer. It was fun, I could focus, like on it, but I felt like I was boring, I wasn't very entertaining, but whatever. The live experience as a duo though, like aside from my personal experience, just, we didn't have barely any groups playing that kind of music. It was mostly, like I said, this is 2009 when we did our first show, and all of 2009 and 10, we were doing some shows around Chicago. We probably did about 21, 22, 23 shows as a group, and most of them were with bands. Most of them, it was like that, the end of the Fall Out Boy era, the Recession, it was live band oriented stuff, and we'd be playing with pop punk bands or hardcore bands, or we'd do these like one-off fests. We did a couple fests. We did Ian's Party once. So we were, that worked at Ian's Party. I think that worked out pretty well. But, it just didn't really make sense. There was no real scene other than what David mentioned with like Ghost House was dope, A&R, some of that crew, like they were kind of like, we fit in with them. We felt like that was like a kindred spirit of people that were on that same wave. Okay, so Vapor Eyes, I got another question for you. What do you remember about recording Sleep West? What do you remember about the recording process of this record?
What do I remember about recording the album? Well, I have some fond memories of recording the album. We did the whole thing in my spare bedroom. It was the second album I ever recorded at home, spare for my first solo record, Earth Rising. So I think one of the things that comes to mind is like learning curve. There's definitely a bit of that. Second thing that comes to mind is how much fun we had, man. It was just like a total aura of experimentation and messing around and just making music, man, for the sake of making music. Two bros just having fun, pretty much anything on the table. I think for me, it was like, oh, I'm excited, I finally invested in the gear. Like I got somebody that really, really is like hungry to work and do creative stuff. And I think Sam was like coming from a hardcore, like, he was touring a lot with band and solo and doing a bunch of stuff in that world. And he was just stoked to do something, I think, like totally off the wall in a different space, man. And I think we both brought these puzzle pieces together for one another while creating this project and working on the album, So I think like, in a sense, the cool part about the record and the project at large was just like the sort of anything goes vibe, man. There really wasn't a ton of limitations whatsoever. Dude would be like, I think I'm gonna go in the closet and record like this 10-part harmony. I'd be like, okay, you could go for it, man. And I'm like, yeah, well, I think I'm gonna add like this 4 on the floor dance part at the end of the song. And he'd be like, yeah, go for it, try it out. And that was kind of like the whole vibe of like pretty much all our music, man, and all our sessions, and we also we had a lot of fun, it's, I think about just in the periphery of the whole thing. You know, even doing like photo shoots and different stuff. It would just be like, yo, you want to go downtown Chicago with a boombox and a juice box and take photos on the bridge over the freeway? Yep. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of no involved in Boomjuice, and I think that's what stands out to me most looking back. For me personally, a solid thing about the whole endeavor was, and I mentioned it before, was, you know, learning from Sam. And I think we both kind of like traded that inadvertently. You know, I came up as a drummer. I really wasn't like a songwriter per se. It was like a lot of things just all by ear or all by gut. And Sam was more the opposite. You know, this dude was like a hardcore songwriter, had a really great ear for pop and for melodies and for catchiness. And I just kind of watched and learned, and we kind of, I think, aided each other in musical growth and just experimentation, and also just learning about different stuff, man. How to put songs together, how to work with another person with different ideas, and just be free, you know. And I took a lot of that from those sessions, you know, going forward. It definitely made an impact on me. And yeah, I'm trying to think what else do I got. I mean, those are the first impressions that come to mind, you know, and just a lot of laughs. You know, the funny part was, like, we didn't really know each other too great. We had come from similar spaces growing up in the punk world, and had like 1-2 degrees separation from each other for a lot of years, until we finally like linked once and for all. But it was like, you know, just getting to know somebody and creating and enjoying the company and the creation process. That was really cool for me, you know. When I look back on that, it was just a lot of fun, very little drama, a lot of, just like I said, positive attitude. Yes, like really nothing's off the table. Be free, go nuts. You want to rap, you want to sing. I mean, just yeah, that was the cool part, you know. No real ego, and just a lot of fun stuff, man. I definitely, I look back fondly. I appreciate those sessions, you know what I mean. Just being able to bounce these ideas off somebody and also get them bounced back off me, and it's like it created something unique and something cool, and I look back on that and I appreciate it, you know.
Well, as I said before, I would just add again, it was the ultimate mindfulness and collaboration. It was the best probably that I've ever had with someone, and it was limitless, and David allowed me to do things that I didn't know I could do. I didn't know I could come up with these chords or these synth ideas or these harmonies like I was doing. Like he said, I hadn't really done a lot with like 3-part harmonies, let alone like 4 or 5. Like I really wanted to get, like, there were tracks on the record where I was honing in on my inner, you know, junior high school self, you know, the Jodeci days and all that 90s R&B stuff, you know. So it was just fun. I could try things that I wanted to try, that I never knew I could do. Also, just so many laughs. We would goof around with each other, bust each other's balls. It was great. We'd be total dorks, hopped up on caffeine sometimes. Oh, that's something else to say about this. During the recording of all of the Boomjuice material, neither of Dave and I drank or did drugs. It was a sober experience as well. One other thing that I'll add, there was a spirituality going on between David and I. I definitely was a monotheist, and David was some sort of theist, I would say, like of sorts. Like, he believes in a god, and he has his reasons for what he believes. And I remember before we would eat pizza, like, even we would sit down and we would just silently pray. Like, and I don't know if we ever really said the prayer out loud, but we just have silence for a moment. We pray to ourselves, and it was like, yo, we both believe in a creator. And that was the cool thing. I don't think I ever had a bandmate like that, where we did that in previous groups. So I love that. I love the humor. I love the freedom. And Vapor Eyes, I got another question for you. How does the album hold up to you? Does it sound dated? What does it sound like to you? What does Sleepless in Chicago sound to you now like in 2025 as opposed to 2008, 2009 when we initially recorded and released the record?
Looking back now, 17 years later. So yeah, the record was written in 2008. I believe it came out in spring 2009. So do the math, written 17 years ago. If I'm asked, does it hold up or does it sound dated? I'm going to answer both. As I mentioned previously, I think the aura and spirit of Boomjuice at large as a project and as a performance unit and as a home recording technology-based band, group, duo, whatever, I think we were slightly ahead of that curve. If I look back on the songs, I don't think they're bad. I just think it has more to do with a little bit of that novice energy, you know, like learning how to execute the vision through a DAW on your laptop in your spare bedroom. And I think that's the big thing. If we were to like get together today, I think it would sound a lot more cohesive and a lot tighter. And obviously there's been over a decade in between, so that makes sense, right? But yeah, I think that there's an innocence to it, you know, and if there are portions that do sound dated, and I think it has more to do with that.
Great point, David. Yeah, I would say it definitely does feel dated to me on a larger scale. It's because we're using a lot of that hardware and no MIDI. I don't think we used any MIDI on this record. And if we did, it would have been Dino laying down something at the very end, but it was all with keyboards, with, you know, like I said, the stuff that we were using kind of was more akin to this kind of stuff and maybe a little later, you know, that 90s, 80s feel. So that makes a lot of sense. At the same time, like, it has its own feel because of like our voices, our delivery, what we're talking about in the content, how it was executed. So I think I could see that. But yeah, it does feel, this release in particular feels a little bit more as a whole dated to me than some of the later stuff, especially the final release that we did, Mixing in Action. That one's probably, in my opinion, that's my favorite one, but for different reasons. However, yeah, that was a completely different approach than the trying not to do samples thing. So Vapor Eyes, what kind of gear were we using exactly? Tell me what the synths, the DAWs, all that stuff. Just let me know, like, give a little landscape, little taste of what that was like recording Sleepless with that kind of gear in your spare bedroom with Ableton Live.
Real quick, and on the subject of sounding current or dated or whatever, I'd just like to mention, you know, two things that came to my mind were, you know, me and Sam really both impacted growing up in the 80s and the 90s, so there's like that little old spirit sort of thing in both of us, and paying homage to those things that really impacted us as youngsters. And I think the second thing I'd like to mention, which I haven't gone too into detail about, was what we made this on. So we recorded into Ableton, and I would say the vast majority of it, if not all of it, was hardware based and live instrumentation. So if I look at the collection I had at the time, you didn't have a ton of like current gear. You know, there wasn't a lot of MIDI, there wasn't a lot of plugins we were using. I mean, this was all like out of the box. Juno 106, some old Korg X5D. You had a bunch of different drum machines I got like in around 2000. I'm trying to think what else we had in the lab. There's just a bunch of toys, man. You know, and I collected all this like stray, sort of like old to vintage to like, I don't know, 90s to early 2000s gear. So I mean, I think by default, some of the sounds just, they sound old school. You know what I mean? And if you compare it, like looking back, what was starting to become hot at the time, and you know, again, I wasn't like a super wizard at the moment on how to use Ableton or home record, so I was definitely going through a lot of learning, and I believe it was Sam's first time doing this thing from a spare bedroom, writing an entire project, not just demoing. So those are things I think about when I'm asked, you know, how it sounds, or if I feel like it sounds maybe dated or whatever. Yeah, because if you look at something that like came out like while Boomjuice was still around or wrapping up, like something like Skrillex, you know, it's so high tech and it's so of the modern ilk, right? And I think, you know, that was just, we had like trace elements of that, I feel like, but again, you know, I think in time the technology advanced so quick and so fast, and a lot of in the box stuff became like the sound of now. And again, we were just like more band guys or whatever that were deviating into something fresh and using the tools at our disposal, which was like a pretty punk rock approach, I guess, and making do with what you have. So yeah, I think that lent to the idea of the sound where, like, you know, again, if we were to make something today, the tools I think would be, for the most part, pretty different. You know, I still like to use a lot of weird hardware and different stuff in my own personal productions, but, you know, there's so many more things available, having had this recording and production world just explode over the last decade or so. So yeah, I just wanted to add that 2 cents there.
Another great point. We tried to get real instrumentation when we felt it was applicable. And I know I played, not only obviously we played most everything on hardware, on synths, but I played electric guitar on some songs, I played acoustic guitar, and then we had some homies come in and do some bass lines, trumpet, sax, stuff like that. And it was like that, I don't know, I know that we were pretty big fans of like the OG, the Chronic, you know, like Dre, how he had tried to get live musicians in when he could on that record. And yeah, there was that part of it, and the punk rock aspect. That's a really good point. All right, another question for you, Vapor Eyes. What influences did you, Vapor Eyes, what did you bring to Boomjuice, influentially speaking?
And when thinking about it, what influences did my half bring to the table in the Boomjuice project? You know, and I grew up around so much different stuff, mostly thanks to MTV in its prime era, and also the radio, and also a little bit from my parents, but mostly through like late night weekend MTV binges when we got cable for the first time, and it just opened my world and shattered me open. So like I'm a music lover, I have a wide range of tastes, but there are some very specific corridors within that wider range that I have dove headfirst into in my lifetime, you know. So musically, I think all that kind of blends into one, right? And I think the bigger thing is the spirit of what I brought to the table. Again, the idea that, like, I don't know, I was already like home recording and making electronic music, and I had basically quit a hardcore band I was in at the time to pursue production work and to really just dive in head first. And this was sometime around 06-ish when I made like an investment in a laptop, and at the time it was Pro Tools, a little bit before I got Ableton, and a few pieces of gear, and I was off to the races. So I think just my attitude and spirit towards creation at the time, you know, where like, and not to knock him, like Sam was doing some very dedicated stuff with dorm life and in his own personal world, and touring and, you know, affiliating with some different people and labels and just different stuff then. And I felt like I was I don't know if outgrowing is the right word, but in a sense evolving, you know, and I think that's the big spirit that I brought to the table, you know, that a lot of these things were starting at the time to bore me, and I had been doing like hardcore and punk rock bands at that point for at least 10 years, and different things were starting to inspire me, like much more fuller, and I wanted to pursue that route. So I think like the biggest thing I brought to the table was like that realm. You know, I wanted to get more into the production side, hip hop, electronic music. And within those genres, a lot of things have inspired me throughout the years and up to that point that I wanted to pursue it, you know. And I think having been a creative type and open-minded thinker, Sam was just like, he saw that and was like, yeah, man, I'm on board. I want to mess with that. So if I think, you know, that'd be, I think my bigger influence to the whole would be that sort of spirit of doing it early-ish and just going for it, you know what I mean? Like not even knowing what I'm doing half the time, but just doing it. And I think that stems very much from my upbringing in DIY and punk rock and being around that stuff and hardcore. And you know, it was just like, yeah, you do whatever you want, man. You make do. You take your tools, you use them, and you go nuts. And that's basically what I did, and Sam jumped on and we created a thing. So
yeah, everything that Vapor Eyes just said is really true. He was onto something that I wasn't quite up on yet, with where things were going. And I was kind of more in that live band. I just got off tour, off of a record, and even though I felt like I was innovating in the realm of what I was doing, for whatever reason, you know, it just wasn't really working out with the band, dynamically speaking, and it just felt like I was getting roadblocked. And then it was just, boom, getting pushed into this whole situation with Boomjuice. It felt like, okay, this is Reinvention 101. This is time to take everything that you've learned and put it all into something new and become something different. And yeah, it was an absolute evolution for me. And specifically as a singer, Roses Are Blue for me was the record that I felt I really started to show or tap into the voice that I do have, you know, now. Boomjuice was like boot camp. It was like, we did 3 releases in 2 years. And that prepared me for now, obviously, but like when you listen to the first, you know, or the Roses Are Blue record by Dorm Life, and then you go to the Mustard Is the New Ketchup record in 2011, you listen to this singer here, all of this got me there, you know? So it's like I couldn't have gotten there without this project, and let alone where I'm at now, you know, making a living being a singer, you know, full time. And then the influences for me, like it allowed me also to tap back into all that R&B and hip hop, specifically that stuff that was my love. My first love was R&B music and hip hop before I started playing guitar or anything like that. So I got to take some of that childhood listening to V100, you know, between, you know, Milwaukee and Chicago, like on the border in McHenry County, you know. So, all right, Vapor Eyes, can you remember, what was the climate musically speaking? What was big at the time? What was popular at the time that we were making Sleepless in Chicago? And also, was there room for Boomjuice at the time, do you think, marketing wise? Was this something that could have gotten big or popular, or was there a place for it?
What music was big at the time, and was there space for what Boomjuice was doing? Interesting question. So when I look back at the time, so Boomjuice was 08 to 010. I would say there was a giant tipping point in 2007, and to me, or maybe 06, I think, when Daft Punk played Coachella, and then the subsequent Daft Punk Alive tour, which I saw at Lollapalooza in 2007 for $80, and that was expensive at the time, but so worth it. But yeah, I can like pretty much pinpoint that tour to the new, like the wave of the new Renaissance, you know, for how things were to come. You know, 2 guys behind Ableton and a bunch of gear with a bunch of lights, doing their thing, headlining a festival, like major festivals, and making an enormous impact. So yeah, that was definitely like what was going on in that world. And then a year later, after the Coachella Daft Punk thing, 07, the Justice album came out, and that made a ton of waves as well, as far as like bringing the new electronic sound to more of the masses, you know. So I look at those two as big tipping points, kind of in tandem with one another, both from France too. Shouts out to the French. But yeah, that was like a super impactful thing, I think, for culture and music at large, you know, those two things going on almost simultaneously, you know. And then you had other things like, you know, this was starting to creep in, like I said in an earlier question. Things like LCD Sound System to MIA and Owl City, even like these totally different sounding artists, but we're starting to like have the production home thing, like DAW recording, fusion of electronic and ethnic music, or electronic and pop music, or you know, electronic and indie rock. So yeah, it was like this cool wave of stuff, like kind of like what you saw in the mid to late 90s, you know, when the tech made a sort of advancement, and that like pre-millennium sound was just so all over the map and so creative. It's such a cool time. And I think we saw the same thing there and this was sort of like the post MySpace, pre other social media like phenomenon phase. So like, again, it's like total changing of the guard with attitudes, how we use technology, how we consume media, just like an overall cultural shift, you know. So I think that was what was going on at the time, and Boomjuice were a small part of that in our own little micro locality, you know. And I think, was there space for it? I answered that in an earlier question. A lot of people didn't know what to do with us because things were slowly or like starting to catch up to the masses, you know what I mean, as far as the new way of how things were going to start becoming, you know, where producers and DJs are now taking the center stage over bands, and the new generation is getting into this stuff rather than like traditional rock, which was up to that point like most people's entry point to music. So yeah, you know, we did the best we could, and we were creative, you know. We found ways to carve out and play shows and occasionally find peers, you know, and it was short-lived. We only did like 20 or 22 shows, and as I mentioned earlier, half of those were in like punk spaces in a sense. So we just did what we could, man. You know, I think if the project continued to go on, it would have caught more steam possibly, because that's the way the tide was shifting towards this thing. But I think it was just a little too early in that shift from like traditional band to producer DJ sort of setup. So we did the best we could with what we had, and I think at that period that's all you could ask.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. I think you said it pretty well there, Vapor Eyes. I would say, like he mentioned, Owl City and stuff like that was kind of getting big at the time. And then under the radar stuff, more like Bird and the Bee was, for me, a big influence at the time. But I don't think that really blew up. You know, they had some songs that were getting some radio play, but they weren't like huge, you know. And anything from the scene that I previously came from, which would have been like anything Fall Out Boy and Pete Wentz had, you know, like that kind of stuff, like the Fuel by Ramen, Decadence, you know, stuff. It was like Cobra Starship probably would have fit in there, you know, and Gym Class Heroes and stuff like that. But it was like that was still a live band. Like they still had a live band performing, and they were mainly playing with like pop punk bands and stuff. So it didn't really fit what we were doing. So I don't know, I felt really out of place. I felt like Boomjuice was definitely a bit early for that whole format of the changing of the guard, you know, from live band to producer DJ stuff. Was there room for us? Maybe. I don't know. It certainly, we didn't find room, but maybe we added to the paradigm. Maybe we were part of the pioneering people that helped the other people go. You know what I'm saying? So Vapor Eyes, another question. What was it like working with CQ? What was it like working with me?
working with CQ as an artist and as a friend. Yeah, I've touched upon this in other segments, but man, you know, like I said, we were acquainted. Our first run-in was randomly when he was like plugging some project or some of his at the Warped Tour on a picnic bench, which was super random. And then our next run-in, when we put that together, was at this job. We worked in the same building, different floors, different companies, whatever. And we put that together, and we kind of like formed a connection. Still, I would consider him at that point an acquaintance, you know. And then he did the song with me on my first solo record, and we became tighter. And then as he followed through on his desire to collaborate further, we actually became like friends, you know. And I think it's been a cool run, and working with him as an artist was very impactful for me, as far as learning how to structure things, how to do things in a more catchy, pop-oriented, you know, IAB, ACABB sort of format, whatever. Yeah, because I really, in a sense, was ignorant to some of that, like on a more traditional level when I first started writing my own stuff at home. You know, I was literally just like enthused to start producing, you know, and I put out a whole record kind of like doing that and just kind of cross collaborating with different folks. And something came out of it. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's kind of like my starter pack when I look back on Earth Rising. But then Boomjuice was kind of like the next jump in the chain of events, because I was collaborating with someone who is much more seasoned in that domain. So as an artist, I respect Sam. He's a grinder, he's a hustler, he's a real talent. He's got a super knack for catchy stuff no matter what genre he's doing. And as a homie, you know, Sam has been a good friend, and we've kind of like had like waves of touch as he's moved around the country, and now I've moved, and we're sort of like back in touch, and we go through waves, you know. But it's like every time we talk, he's one of those cats that, like, you pick up where you left off, you know what I mean? We have this cool part of history together in the couple years we did this project, and you know, I think it stayed with both of us, you know what I mean? It made an impact on both of us and in what we've done, even subconsciously, I think, creatively throughout the rest of the years going forward, you know. So overall, cool running. I guess, you know, it was meant to be, man. The universe like kept lining us up and putting us in each other's path till we started spending a lot of time in my spare bedroom together and getting to know one another and really just going forth and making tunes, man, you know. And I look back, and whether I'm lukewarm on some of it or I love some of it, you know, like, I'm proud of what we did. It was like a cool, like, really experimental, fun period of time, like of like our 20s, man, you know. It was just like a real neat era to be messing around and like doing this stuff and having someone on board that was ready to do the same stuff, man, had the same level of enthusiasm. So shouts out to Sam, CQ, Capriquarius, the man, you know, big ups. Love you, bro.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said a lot about Vapor Eyes already, but for me, it was like, I didn't have to think about the beat. I didn't have to think about the engineering. He just would do that stuff and let me do what I do. And it was a very perfect synthesis together. So I don't know, man, it was with ease. It just flowed. It felt like every session was a flow state. We would get into that state. We had like some sort of you know, rituals of whether it was caffeine or snacks or, you know, high C or whatever, you know, and then it was like, boom, let's go, let's flow. So it was seamless. It was very seamless, and he always pushed me. Like, he always thinking ahead. Like, he always wanted to do more. So we were both hungry. We were both so hungry. Vapor Eyes, what do you remember about the first live Boomjuice performance or show?
What do I remember about the first Boomjuice show, the record release show at Reggie's? Man, love that one. So yeah, I remember a few things, you know. Number one, I remember putting together a lineup, and we, like I mentioned before, loved genre mashing, loved going against the grain, and that's what we did, man. We both called up some homies, we put together this really diverse bill, And then we wanted to make something pretty cool out of it. And I remember like the spirit of Boomjuice, like I've said, is always like, yeah, sure, let's do it. You know, and I remember it was like, oh, let's throw some TVs on the stage and just let them run like, I forget if they had like a built-in VCR or whatever. I'm not totally sure, but everything was just like, yeah, you want a DJ to play in between sets? Let's grab one. You want to throw TVs on stage and let them play? Let's do it. And that was just like the overall spirit of the show and Boomjuice at large. And I look back and I appreciate that, man, because we had a DJ, we had a like a female singer, electro songwriter, we had a hip-hop group. It was super cool, man, just like a mixed bill. We were celebrating, and I think we brought together a performance and a lineup that fit exactly what like mine and Sam's vision were for this thing. You know what I mean? Just to bring a lot of influences and inspirations together, call up the homies, make something cool, and just have a lot of fun. And I believe that's what we did for that show. And yeah, and it was cool. We put out our first album, and that was exciting, right? We had CDs, man, back in the CD era. And those were always like an exciting moment when those boxes arrived, and then you knew you were going to actually go plug something, you know? So that was a cool era and a fond memory. And there's pictures of it somewhere, and I'm sure Sam's got video of it somewhere. So that's cool, and I hope he does, because that was like a fun moment in history in my trajectory.
Oh, that was a fun one to hear from you. What I remember, a little more in detail, of course, is we played at Reggie's, of course. It was May 2nd, 2009. We played with Ellen Loves Everything, Me, Myself, and Rhyme, and H2O-Soul, and then DJ Michael Wing was there for some DJ sets. And we performed this entire record from start to finish, track 1 to track 11. And yes, like Vapor Eyes said, we had a TV on each side, a box, like an old tube TV, right? Like, I'm looking at one, by the way, in front of this camera. I just got myself one yesterday. But we had these tube TVs, and we had a VCR for one, and we had a DVD player for the other one while we played this record release show. And so they were playing on the stage left, it was Boomerang, and on stage right, it was Juice. You got some Boomjuice right there. So we had two movies playing simultaneously, two 90s classics, and just with no volume, and we were the soundtrack to these movies playing. And I think at some point at the end of the show, I want to say like when Party Out came, like we had a bunch of balloons fall or something from like a net or something. I feel like that had to have happened. We kind of went all out for that one. That was like, yo, we're here. We're Boomjuice, you know? So, yeah, I remember that being a great time. I don't think I have video of it, but I definitely have tons of photos of the event. And yeah, it was quite memorable for me because a lot of times, actually this is probably the first time I'd ever done a show with a group that I was in where we hadn't performed before we made the record. Like before it was like Midwest Blue, we played a bunch of shows and then we recorded our first EP, like after we had played songs out live. Same with Dorm Life, you know, we played songs out live and then we recorded a full length. With this, it was like we made the full length and then we figured out how to bring that laptop and that microphone and that keyboard and the backing tracks on Ableton and like how to sort of play it on the keys and perform it vocally and everything. So yeah, that was an interesting experience, like not playing a show until you had an album out. And that was a new one for me. I think that may happen nowadays more often for people, but usually it always seemed like you played some shows before you made the record. So that was very unique. All right, I got one more question for my boy Vapor Eyes. Yo, I just want to know, what was it like for you growing up in Chicago? I know what it was like for me, but what was it like for you growing up in the Chicago area in the 1990s in the punk scene when we had the Fireside Bowl and all that stuff? I just want to hear your perspective as my slightly older brother. And also to add to that, Do you think that Boomjuice would have fit better in the 90s? Was there space for Boomjuice then versus in like 2008-9 when we started doing it?
Growing up in Chicagoland, in the region, how did I experience live music or participate in it? Well, excellent question, man. I mean, I think for me, it was one of the most formative things that probably shaped like the trajectory of the rest of my life, to be honest. I feel like super #blessed. I mean, no joke. Being from that region and getting to experience like DIY and punk and hardcore and ska and Midwest emo and Midwest rave and all these different things in the 90s, alongside with the way media was being distributed, you know, just so impactful for me, man. You know, I think a lot of my thinking was shaped by that DIY culture and the political nature of the punk rock, the hardcore scene, and even the hip hop community. I mean, at large, those things just shaped a lot of like how I perceive the world and how I behave out there, and how I understand how systems work and different things like that. And that all comes from the music landscape, man. Just by listening to different bands and reading their liner notes and listening to the speeches in between songs and buying zines, and attending the fireside and being around like the counterculture or whatever. Yeah, just I can go on and on, man, but there was a lot cracking, not only locally, but just to me, growing up in that era in the music world at large, just like a time of complete creative expansion, diversity, anything sort of goes. And it was more like, it was a different environment. So like the barriers to entry were a little higher, or much higher, I would say. So I think there was a lot more healthy competition and people trying to actually be the best they could, not only musically, but like just at large, man, performance wise, with their message, how they present themselves. Whereas now I feel like, knock me for it, but I feel like standards are pretty low. So like anything goes today, but kind of in the opposite way. I think it's like a low, way low barrier to entry, and therefore you get just a lot of like mediocre or sort of like not creative stuff that just floods the market. Not to say there's not amazing stuff. There's still some very amazing stuff today, but I feel like overall the impact for me, and maybe it's because I'm older now, but those times were just so impactful, and we had so much going on, and there were shows in the suburbs, and there were shows in the city, and there were shows in VFW halls and bowling alleys and backyards and you name it, man. Like we were able to access so much cool stuff that really had a far-reaching impact on me. Like I would guess you could say at this point, looking at it like just spiritually even, you know, formative stuff, man, really shaped me, you know, being part of that. And the other part of that question, I feel like I've answered many times throughout this interview, is if Boomjuice kept going, do you think there would be a space there? And I think it'd be the same answer, man, possibly. Hard to say. I know the times would have accepted it a little more, but again, everything shifted, right? Like there's never going to be a repeat of that scene in the 90s. I actually think it probably would have been more accepted back then, because it would have been so different, and there was like an underground appreciation for people who are pushing the boundaries in that level. So yeah, man, I could write a small book on how the scene and doing stuff in Chicago and milling around the record stores and being in bands and being a spectator and going to the DIY spots and going to the Fireside Bowl just made such a monumental impact on my being and the way I perceive the world. So I'm personally super grateful for those times. They, I think, informed even what we're talking about here, which is the Boomjuice project, you know. And I know Sam had ties into those worlds as well, and I think both of us really carried that DIY, for lack of better terms, just punk rock approach to the whole thing, man. You know, just get after it, do it, make do, take the tools, use them, try to do something cool. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and I still, you know, operate in that sort of format in a lot of departments in my life today, and I'm very grateful that I was able to experience that time, because although there's like cool things and there's still DIY and all that, I just don't think it exists on a similar scale, and just things have changed and technology's impeded a lot of personal interactions and stuff like that. So at the time it was very pure, it was very raw, and it was very exciting. And I mean, really, it was like super, looking back, I was so stoked to be part of that and have those experiences, man, because I feel like the kids they missed out, you know what I mean? Like, if you weren't born, I don't know, man, it just got lucky, you know? I don't know what else to say. Certain forces like pulled me or moved me towards those spaces, and I just jumped right in, man. I was really attracted to it and took a lot out of it, you know? And I try to carry myself with some of those learnings to this very day, you know? And again, in closing, I think that was a big impact, you know, on what I do creatively, for sure. And I think it definitely crossed over into the ethos and the sound and the overall experimentation that Sam and I did in Boomjuice, you know? So yeah, shouts out to that era, man, and Chicagoland Underground. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much for answering all my questions, Vapor Eyes. I think that was very well stated, and I obviously have told my story thus far in the Chicago music scene, but it was nice to hear a little bit more of that early stuff when I wasn't going to shows as much, in the center, the early, like, mid, you know, era. And to think that maybe Boomjuice, you know, I could see it in like 97, 98, you know, when you had your Prodigy and Daft Punk explosions and all those groups, you know, the electronic stuff kind of happening. And maybe this could have been an underground thing. Maybe, you never know. And I mean, they had a very diverse thing going. While it was more of a live band feel at the Fireside, I think that they probably would have embraced this. I mean, they had things like Adam and His Package and odd things like Wesley Willis and, you know, things like of that nature. So, amongst many others. But to wrap up the questions here, I now want to move into the second part of this discussion. So now that we've kind of told the story of recording the record and we're getting ready to play some songs off of it, let's just talk a little bit about the artwork to the record. Now, the tagging in this was done, actually the entire layout and art was done by our buddy Tom Demavivas, who did the Slave to Servant artwork for Escape Babylon, by the way. He did all of our Boomjuice art, but I think my initial idea of doing tagging, obviously tagging was a big thing in hip-hop culture, but I remember seeing, there was a movie at the time that came out called The Whackness, and I remember seeing that poster and going to see the film, and the soundtrack had all this great, you know, mix of 90s R&B and hip-hop on it, and so I was really feeling that tag thing. So I think we landed on that, maybe based on what I was seeing with that, but Tom killed it. Of course, we utilized that logo on our pins, our merch, our t-shirts, the other releases that we put out, all the flyers and such, we would put it on there. So thank you, Tom, for killing the artwork for my 7th release in the ACR catalog and David's 2nd in the SSL catalog. Something else to note on the artwork, if you notice in this, there is, well, first off, it's anime. It's supposed to kind of have an anime feel. And I also remember, I think David really liked the graduation art by Kanye. So we were kind of going for like a similar-ish scheme with the purples and the yellows and stuff like that, and other colors. But if you look closely at this CD, you'll see I have a pin, a button, and it's a Dorm Life logo with yellow, because I was writing the Yellow album at the time, and I would have thought that the the Yellow album would have been recorded before I got anything like this done, but it seemed like Dorm Life just took a hiatus for a couple years there, and we did nothing. But we had a whole album pretty much written and ready to go, and so that was a hint toward what was to come for Dorm Life. You know, the deal where I come from. I'm coming from this band with my chops, trying to be Wolverine or something. Yeah. Other than that, of course, we used Annie Rudolph's, photos with the, infamous high C that I found at the UIC campus on the fly. Thank you, universe. Oh, we also had some photos of us, in the studio, writing lyrics, recording, doing the photo shoot, etc., with kind of handwritten lyrics from all the songs on the record. And lastly, before I break into any of the songs on here, I wanted to say that the funding for this is kind of fascinating in itself. In 2000, I want to say it was 2003 through 2006, I started to collect a lot of punk rock vinyl records. And CDs were still, the thing at the time. And vinyl was kind of, they would do limited pressings on colored vinyl of Hot Water Music or Alkaline Trio or whatever bands, you name a band, And a lot of times other labels would put out the vinyl version than the label that put out instead of the label that put out the CD, because the CD was, the cash money at the time, which obviously were flopped at this point in the time spectrum where we're at today. But so I had all this vinyl, and I remember David was the king of just eBaying stuff. He would nickel and dime it, and he was really good at saving, much better than I was. And so he had developed some sort of neural pathway to just nickel and dime stickers and promos and whatever he could sell on eBay, and it would just stack up in this PayPal account so that he could fund things. And so when he saw what I had, he started putting my, I had the original Academy demo and Fall Out Boy demo and Brand New's first record on vinyl, which I think went for $200 and some dollars, Less Than Jake 7 inches. I'm trying to remember what else I had.
You know how I afforded my half of mixing?
Oh.
eBay.
Well, how did I afford my half of mixing? eBay.
It was all from selling vinyl.
Dude, you know what? You heard of the group Brand New?
Yeah.
This motherfucker had a signed copy of colored vinyl. Guess how much that motherfucker went for?
Brand New?
Their first
Your favorite
album.
weapon, colored signed vinyl.
$50.
$187. Yeah.
Shit.
Dude.
Awesome.
Fucking insane.
I couldn't believe it.
But I had a lot of stuff. Original Sundial 7-inch by Alkaline Trio, which was kind of a relic, a holy grail in Chicago, if you were an Alkaline Trio fan, to get that Johann's Face limited pressing. But yeah, I sold all of it, everything I had, to fund the mixing and the pressing of this and our merch. And then I further sold more to kind of fund my own little studio toward the end of Boomjuice, so that I could record all of my own vocals for Mustard Is the New Ketchup by Dorm Life. And then here I am today, still recording myself. So thank you, eBay. Without eBay and without nerdy collectors such as Vapor Eyes and CQ, we would not have been able to fund this whole thing. All right, so now that you've got, I think, the whole lowdown and then some, thank you for sitting through this presentation thus far. And I want to go ahead now and start getting into the songs on the album. So we're gonna go ahead and pause so I can move myself and we can really tackle the musical portion of this episode.
This is serious.
What's up, player?
Got my notes.
Serious.
Solid.
Okay. I thought you just did a stereo.
It's so sweet. I love those chords.
It brings a tear to my eye. My third eye. Oh. Oh.
It's not me. I do the beats. See. I'm Vapor Eyes, by the way.
Hi.
This is CQ over here. The hat.
The glasses.
Bad effects track.
He does all the singing.
Capriquarium.
That ain't me, homie.
He's in denial, man.
Mm-hmm.
She's always on my mind, but half of the time I let her cry. But the memories on her mind, all of the time she's one of a kind. Party out, baby, out, party out, lady, out, party out, baby, out, party out, party out, party out, baby, out, party out, lady, out, party out, baby, out, party out, party out.
Our world is endangered by the absence of good ideas. Our world is in crisis because of the absence of consciousness. And so, to whatever degree any one of us can bring back a small piece of the picture and contribute it to the building of a new paradigm, then we participate in the redemption of the human spirit. And that, after all, is what it's really all about.
Woo! That's pretty ballsy. Yeah, it's a record.
That's a record. I'm back, and now we can go ahead and play some of these songs. I'm not going to play the whole record, but I'm going to play a significant portion of the record. Some songs longer portions than others. We will go ahead and start off with the introduction entitled Spintroduction.
It looked bad. It looked like Chicago would be hit by riots. Stokely Carmichael told Chicago they had a big job on their hands.
Feel the consciousness inside ourselves of when one city starts to go. If they bring the National Guard in that city, every goddamn city's gonna go.
But Chicago's summer never exploded. It just simmered and sputtered.
All of them down 51st, 47th, 63rd, 39th, every place in Chicago. That's where they're gonna ride it.
Who has been talking to a lot of kids to tell them that rioting is the way to get their freedom?
Caught within this city of wind, the record just keeps on spinning like my mind. In these end times, with theories that make us weary, let us remain optimistic through quarter notes and vibrato, treble clef and staccato. May we find hopeful, joyous sound beneath the music and suppress our appetites for now defunct and ruinous living. Let the notes ring out amongst the living and the ghost. May bass lines river through our bodies eternal. Caught up in this city of wind, sleepless, night falls, mind faults, my default's nocturnal. Echoes in the distance of spiritually devoid consumers ring out along bus routes and alleyways. I find myself caught amidst endless precincts of nothingness.
See the city, living, forgiving for living, sinning, in prison and missing to listen to what's forbidden. See the city, living, forgiving for living, sinning, in prison and missing to listen to what's forbidden.
Our psyches scattered with billboard advertisements and replicas of ideas now lost and disconcerted. Let us reach for higher ground in this epoch containing the Great Depression of our own kind. May we sip the nectar of this sweet vibration and bask amidst the glory of its restless, tender sound. As clouds peel themselves back to reveal the brightest star this side of planet Earth, let the value uncover itself for what it's worth. May green vines grow along city walls. May our deepest prayers be heard. May this music ring true throughout the jukebox of the collective unconsciousness. May this voice be heard beneath the ether as empty streets lined up with spirits and memoirs of days past cloud a mental vision. And when the fog settles, I'm left with nothing, spare for sounds and voices, static and choices.
See the city, living, forgiving for living, sinning, in prison and missing to listen to what's forbidden. I wanna see the city, living, forgiving for living, sinning, in prison and missing to listen to what's forbidden. I wanna see the city, living, forgiving for living, sinning, in prison and missing to listen to what's forbidden. I wanna see the city, living, forgiving for living, sinning, in prison and missing to listen to what's forbidden.
Juice now, man.
Now, that one had a remix available on the deluxe version on my Alarm Clock Bandcamp page. There is a deluxe version of this that I made with all of the remixes of various songs off of the record. So there are 8 remixes. Then I put Accessory as a bonus track, and I put a live version of Grid Inside the Dome, which you saw earlier in this presentation. So to note about this particular track, Spintro, one, I know that in the Earth Rising episode, I mentioned that it was called Lintroduction, and that began this whole thing with having to call it some sort of spin-off of, that. And so this one was Spin, like the record started spinning. Also, J-Biz played bass on this one, so there was live bass. And then I remember also using Stokely Carmichael and some of the dialogue from the Chicago riots in there, just to kind of give you this very dystopian sort of unrest, right? Anyway, I always really enjoyed that one. I'm going to skip the next 2 tracks on here because to me, even though those were the ones that we pushed on the sampler because they were very poppy songs, and they're good songs, I just feel like, now that I have hindsight 2020, I don't really listen to those songs so much, and they're decent. But anyway, Rock, Paper, Scissors was the next song. I know that Dino helped a little bit on the keys, and I played acoustic guitar on that one. Really liked the bridge to that one. I always called it Chooch when we were working on it before there were any vocals, just because it reminded me of the Quad City DJs for some reason. And that was where I kind of maybe brought in a faster rap. Like I tried to kind of do some sort of Bombs Over Baghdad cadence or something. That was me attempting. Again, this was the first time we had ever done rap, the both of us. So this is my real first attempt at it. And I don't think it went incredibly well, but it also, it was for fun. Again, I won't play the next song either, which is Runway Jam. We did a music video for that one. And I think actually there was a music video for Rock, Paper, Scissors that Wyatt had filmed at Notebook Entertainment with some bicyclist or something, like a BMX guy. But yeah, Runway Jam was the only proper video that we did. And yeah, I probably shouldn't have worn flip-flops in that video. Really not a great look. But kind of a lo-fi, fun little thing that we did, not particularly attached to it. But Runway Jam actually had a single, like a proper single that we put out for it, and there were 2 remixes, I do believe, of that song. There was one remix of Rock, Paper, Scissors, I believe, on the deluxe version as well. So moving on, the next song I'm going to play off of here is the 4th song on the record. The song is entitled Get On It.
If you slow your road, so roll down the window, let the smoke out snow. You know you could go faster if you slow your road, so roll down the window, let the smoke out snow. So slow it down if you're down and around, make a sound with a frown. What you found is all you'll ever need to really know you round. Slow it down if you're down and around, make a sound with a frown. What you found is all you'll ever need to really know you round. Help me out of my seat, drive me into a tree, drop me off on the beat and beat me down 6 feet underground, so which underneath the influence is deep, deeply shallow indeed, diving into a sea. See me often and slowly, will you speed up the beat? What you got to beat? I'm in bed tonight, so simply you will own the vibe. Cause I always cease to freeze and think I will be anything I'm you. And you're laughing at me, so give me a reason we should stay. You got me locked up tight. You could go faster if you slow your road, so
So this one, I remember the first time this one was on that disc that I talked about much earlier in this presentation, that had 5 songs or 5 instrumentals that Dave had given me. And when I first heard this one, I was like, whoa, this is cool. It sort of reminded me of the song Hip Hop by Dead Prez that keeps playing over and over in Chappelle's Show, that episode where he's like, I'm gonna do a stand-up on, you wanna hear my thoughts on Afghanistan, like that whole episode. There was one remix, which is also on the Bandcamp deluxe version of this song. Dino also helped out on this one with some keys and programming at the end. What I like about this song is it kind of starts off with more of a hip-hop feel, and then it turns into almost like a electronica dance house kind of feel at the end. And the song, I don't think lyrically makes any sense. I was trying to write a song that was sort of split personality, like I was talking to 2 versions of myself in the song, like a Fight Club type of deal, a dichotomy, if you will. So it's a very weird song, experimental on multiple levels. I'm not gonna play the next song, but there are things about the next song that I really like there's a saxophone that Steve-O, David's brother, played. Also, like that was the first time I think Dave came in and like did some hype man stuff. It was kind of fun in there. As far as what I remember busting out, of course, the thesaurus and the rhyming dictionary and such. I personally was influenced by the song The Way I Am off of Eminem's second proper full length. The way that the cadence, the flow of the way he raps, I kind of jacked that and sang that in a way, obviously with completely different lyrical content, but that was an influence at the time. I remember sitting in Lab 401 in that spare bedroom and coming up with that and really channeling that Eminem song big time. Also, the song that I'm going to play next is David's first time really rapping, I think. And so we have to play at least an excerpt of this song. It's entitled Serious.
Deeper she swam, the more that she slammed, the faster she ran, running from herself, trying to catch her breath again, a testament to death again. There's something better than the chemicals that got her caught up deep beneath the denizen. She's chasing her dreams, it's breaking the seams. Funny how a whole frame froze up, locked inside the high beams, the flashing lights bouncing off the glare. The whole place stopped and stood blank and just stared. There has to be another soul out there, who cares? She cried to herself as she peered to the mirror, the tears streaming down off a pretty little face. The memories erased, gone without a trace. Was a faith that she prayed up above. No limits, this place, no love. Pick the cup back up when push came to shove. Silence eats away. In spite of me, side with me tonight. She's drinking again, she's drinking again, she's sinking again, she's drinking again, she's thinking again, sinking again, she's drinking again, she's thinking again, she's drinking again, she's drinking again, she's sinking, drinking again, drinking again, drinking again, dosing of the medicine, she's sinking again, thinking again, drinking again, she's sinking again, dosing of the medicine, she's sinking again, drinking again, sinking again, dosing of the medicine, she's sinking again, drinking again, sinking again, drinking again, thinking again, she's sinking again, again, dosing of the medicine, she's drinking again,
I was just reminded when saying the title that also at the time of recording this, The Dark Knight had come out in theaters, and I think I had seen it twice that season or whatever you'd call it, like that summer. And I had thought about naming the song Why So Serious, but I'm glad I didn't in hindsight. Just some randomness there. I really like that drum and bass kind of vibe that comes in like halfway to the end, like last third of the song. Kind of that You Got Me roots type of feel. I think the chorus to that one's really strong. I think the melodies, the harmonies that I sang, I think that one is pretty good. Again, production,
sound choices sonically maybe a little dated. Moving on, the song Lady's Choice also, I don't think that one ever had a remix. I don't think Sirius also, I don't think that had a remix, now that I'm thinking about it. But on Lady's Choice, which I'm not going to play today, that was on the original 5-song, instrumentals CDR as well. And J-Biz played bass on there, and I played acoustic guitar on there. And that was one of like 3 sort of more love songs on the record. I wouldn't call the other 2 necessarily love songs, but they were more love-oriented songs, which were Rock, Paper, Scissors and Runway Jam. They were just positive, kind of aimed at that type of emotive love. But Lady's Choice was a legitimate love song, and I liked some of the elements of it. Like, I was very breathy on it, so it reflected to me a little bit, reminded me of like Dwelle at the time, some of the sonics that we used on it, maybe a little bit of Daft Punk, some of the smooth elements of what they would use sometimes, because it started off as kind of like a halftime R&B groove, and then we started to put that electronica and dance into it, layering it with some multiple harmonies. So that was a cool experiment for me. All right, so I'm gonna play another song on here. This song is entitled Strings.
You take your shot and I'll take my shot, but mine's going straight to your jaw. Bloodied up mouth from the shattered teeth, that'll slice it right through your toe. Should have been beaten earlier before you open right up to toe. Left wing hating on the right wing, both of y'all's wrong wings into an O. Freedom is the finest form of fictional formality, remains a deeper silver. Freedom is the finest form of fictional formality, remains a deeper silver. Round 2 K9 coming up behind with an uppercut to your spine. Crooked ass vertebrae and crooked teeth to keep it chair bound and always in line. Wheels turning fast but the screws are loose while your nuts are tight in a vise. Should have been saving attention up, extend the tax cut, you're paying the price. So take your shot and I'll take my shot, but mine's going straight to your jaw. Right wing hating on the left wing, both of y'all's wrong wings getting ripped off. America, Americans, we get by without our wings again. Freedom is the finest form of fictional formality, remains a deeper silver. Freedom is the finest form of fictional formality, remains a deeper silver.
These are the days of the dancing 6 feet apart.
You heard David and I both kind of echo that this was one of our favorites, and I think this is one of the ones that's lived on for us, of course, but it's, sonically speaking, it's actually very lo-fi, and maybe that's why I like it so much. It's kind of less synth heavy and more string heavy, given that it's got a strings sample on it. And I know I've talked about the song already, but strings, I believe, with 3 Z's was like the strings that are controlling us, the puppet masters behind the scenes, right? And we're all asleep, the Z's, right? So that was kind of like my thought when when entitling the song. I think that this song for me, out of all of them, was sort of before its time, at least in like my realizations of the world. Like I knew there was an organized thing going on with society, but I didn't realize that to the full degree, or have the data or the history or the research. And so in hindsight now that I look at it all with these eyes to see and ears to hear, I think Strings is almost prophetic in some ways. Also, J-Biz played bass on this song again, and then Grant Coudert played trumpet on it. So it's a very organic sounding song as opposed to a lot of the other previous songs on the record. Okay, so now we're gonna play my favorite. I think this is my favorite, even though I think Party Out is the standout track on the record. I would point someone to that first. For me, Ecto-Coolin was really big because I was so into the Wicked Little Girls album by Estero, and the song Fastlane was one of my favorites. And when I heard Dave's jungle beat, like his drum and bass thing that he didn't use for, I think there might have been a hint of it on Earthrising, but these were like beats that he was just kind of not using from previous sessions. And so when I heard it, I was like, we got to do something to that. So I just started playing keys immediately to it and picking out chords. And so the sonics of it were very, again, like Strings, a little bit more organic, less synths, even though there are some synths. I used a clean electric guitar on it, playing a lot of octaves and really fast stuff on the bridge where it kind of explodes. But this song is kind of near and dear to me because of the previous, at least at the time, I had gotten out of a rough relationship and I was regrouping. And so the song is very much about the struggles of the mind and coming back to homeostasis and being able to fill your own cup and rebuild your life, you know, after envisioning it to be different. Not an uncommon situation that people go through, but for me it was very impactful, and this was a very cathartic song, and I would say healing in a way, this song, just getting it all out on paper. So yeah, this song is entitled Ecto-Coolin.
breathe, exhale, mentally relax.
Okay, so now we've pretty much made it through almost the entire record. There are 2 songs left, and I'm going to play excerpts from both of the next 2 songs. This one is actually based on my first time on LSD, and it's a story of what I saw, what that was like for me. This one was another one that I felt like I was sort of before the curve on a lot of my knowledge and a lot of what I was going to be going into later. Yeah, would later become a podcaster, right? And interview researchers and stuff, not knowing that at this time, right? But yeah, so anyway, this song is sort of reminiscent, I would say. It reminds me a little bit of Jamiroquai. It's more of just a straight dance, like house song. Anyway, we'll just play it. It's called Grid Inside the Dome.
If my memory serves me correct, reflecting upon a time when energy it did connect, connecting every star in the sky above and beyond the average spectrum of sight, sighting planet differences. I sighted the plane and the boredom moonlight. While it was racing, I was spacing out and chasing it down to Earth while tracing spaces without a trace. Because the stars don't lie unless they're lying face down, burnt out. Because the skies don't lie, it's just the clouds covering up what we doubt. When will we wake? When we are safe under the dome? When will we sleep? When we're completely out our dome?
And every one of us, when we go into the psychedelic state, this is what we should be looking for. It's not for your elucidation. It's not part of your self-directed psychotherapy. You are an explorer.
If I could get your attention undivided as I ride it for a couple more seconds before I take my turn to crash and burn. Takes time to earn the cash to learn. We're burning more than we'll ever earn. When will we wake? When we are safe under the dome? When will we sleep? When we're completely out our dome? When will we wake? When we are safe under the dome? When will we sleep? When we're completely out our dome?
Always a fun one. Enjoyed doing that one live also. I forgot to mention also there are 3, the last 3 songs that I played have remixes on the deluxe version of this album, Sleepless in Chicago and the Alarm Clock Bandcamp, so you can check those remixes out. I am going to leave you with one more song, and this song actually contains, believe it or not, the backing track of Accessory. So we used like the skeleton beat of Accessory and then just kind of expounded on it. Dave beefed it up, added other things, and then I don't know, this was one of the last ones that we kind of came up with, and we were like, yo, this is party out, bro. This is like, we're gonna leave it like the Gnarls Barkley St. Elsewhere record. Like that last song, the last time on that record, like just, it makes you want to play the whole record again, or at least that song again. And so we wanted a really strong closer, and I think we did it. But yeah, let's go ahead and play Party Out.
Exactly what it means to be jaded. We started this party, now we're backing up together, single bounce up, down with the sound. If you're up to lay down, to get up in the morning without a head pounding. To the tempo, from tempo to tempo. As soon as the lights go, the sooner you let go. My voice is just an accessory to the beat, like the heat from the instrumental. Mental, gentle, mental pain.
straight banger. We actually had a video made by Wyatt at Notebook Entertainment where he utilized these roller skating babies, and I think it went semi-viral at the time. It was it did like millions of views, and the song kind of, I don't know, got some traction, I guess, on the interweb. I don't know, I didn't see any money from that or anything, but it was cool to see that, you know, one of our songs were more popular. This was also before, I don't think we ever had this on iTunes even. So this record as a whole has never been on any streaming platforms or anything. It's only available on Bandcamp or in my web store at samswansonmusic.com/store. And before I end this episode, I wanted to just go ahead and read one review, because we only had one review in total of this record. And I have mentioned this before, but Feedback Magazine, the 5th issue of this publication, had a review for Boomjuice's Sleepless in Chicago. So let's go ahead and hear what they had to say. Boomjuice, Vapor Eyes and Capriquarius teamed up to form the project Boomjuice. Before even playing their first show, they released the Powerhouse Club / Trip Hop CD LP Sleepless in Chicago. From start to finish, this is the album to keep a party going all night. Boomjuice leaves no genre behind as they lay down huge beats accompanied by Vapor Eyes' raw and smooth rhymes and Capriquarius' soulful harmonies. For fans of Estero, Gnarls Barkley, and the Postal Service, Sleepless in Chicago is an album that shapes the future of music while giving it a renewed sense of hope. Brought to you by Alarm Clock Revolution and Secret Schools Limited. There you go. Sleepless in Chicago, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for sitting through this presentation. Once again, you can go to my website and find on my music tab, you can download all of my albums, including this one, the deluxe version. And my web store, I have physical CDs still of this, as well as some cassettes of Crunk and Public, which I'll be covering in the future. I have some of these t-shirts, the OG Boomjuice purple logo, in the web store as well. And yeah, in other news, I finally have the Red Tape available on CD in my web store. You can go to samswansonmusic.com/store if you'd like to support me. You can also download that on Bandcamp, the full 33-track version as opposed to the 27 tracks. I am excited to announce some other things going on right now. I'm working on a new project with someone that I'm very delighted to be working with. And so kind of working on a new band that will be not mentioned in this episode, but probably in the next 1 or 2 episodes, I'll start talking a little bit more about that new project that I'm in. And there are a lot of updates since I started recording this episode on other Under the Radar bands. So I'm going to update all of those things that have been happening with those various bands in the next broadcast of Dr. Manhattan's Jam Dreams, whenever I get around to recording that. This episode took probably about 2.5 months to record because I've just been so busy. But I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well. This hoodie won't even fit me correctly. It won't zip up anymore because I've been working out so much and building muscle. So I'm doing quite well. I look forward to broadcasting more. I've done some interviews since on the Red Tape, since its release. And so I'll be dropping more content on the Slave to Servant YouTube channel. In the meantime, I would like to direct you to Sam Swanson Music YouTube channel, where I'm just posting a bunch of different music videos weekly. Some are Slave to Servant, some are just solo ones, some are cover ones, and then some are ones for a new project that's about to hit the ether here. So anyway, mad thanks to Vapor Eyes for doing these interviews from Arizona and just helping reminisce with me. I look forward to being back soon, and thank you for your time.